I used to think money was everything. I came from humble beginnings, farm boy from Idaho. I wanted to make it big, and I did. By the time I was 31 years old, I was rich, a millionaire. I thought I had it all figured out. But let me tell you what happened next. By the time I was 33, I was broke. I lost it all. Not because the money disappeared, not because the opportunity disappeared, but because I hadn't grown enough to keep it. See, you can give a man $1 million, but if he doesn't have the discipline, the wisdom, the character to manage it, he'll soon be back where he started. You don't keep success with luck. You keep it with principles. And that was my lesson. That early money, it drove me crazy. I went wild. I used to walk into a store and say, "How many colors does it come in? I'll buy them all." I thought wealth was possessions. But wealth isn't how much you can spend. It's how much you can keep, how much you can grow, and most of all, who you become while earning it. Now here's the good news. Losing it all was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Why? Because I had to rebuild. But this time, I rebuilt with discipline. I rebuilt with patience. I rebuilt with principles. And when you do that, you're not just building a bank account, you're building a foundation that lasts. So let me give you some principles that turned my life around, and that can turn yours around too. Number 1, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you want to have more, you've got to become more. Success isn't something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Don't chase money, chase growth. Money is a byproduct of value, and value comes from developing yourself. 2, learn the art of discipline. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Without discipline, your dreams are just wishes. You don't need to do extraordinary things. Just a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Separate the successful from the unsuccessful. Number 3, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Life doesn't get easier, but you can get stronger. Don't hope for less problems. Hope for more wisdom. Don't pray for fewer challenges. Pray for more skills. That's how you grow into the kind of person who can handle wealth and success. Number 4, guard your associations. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you surround yourself with lazy, negative people, guess what? You'll become lazy and negative. But if you surround yourself with winners, with thinkers, with doers, you'll rise to their level. And number 5, learn to manage both money and character. Wealth isn't just about making money, it's about keeping it. Anyone can earn a fortune once, but the wise learn to sustain it, invest it, grow it. Money without character is temporary. Character sustains wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, success is not what you have, it's what you become. If you took all the money away from a true millionaire, but left their knowledge, their discipline, their habits, they'd be wealthy again in no time. Why? Because wealth is not money in your pocket. It's wisdom in your mind and strength in your spirit. When I lost everything, I thought I was finished. But I realized something. I had gained experience, I had learned lessons, and I could use those lessons to build again, and this time, build stronger. And that's exactly what I did. So if you've failed, don't quit. If you've lost, don't despair. What matters is not the setback, it's the comeback. What matters is the person you become through the process. Don't chase success. Instead, become the kind of person success is attracted to. Build yourself, grow yourself, discipline yourself. Wealth will follow. And remember this, the ultimate wealth is not money in the bank. It's the wisdom, character, and faith inside you. That's the kind of wealth no one can take away. When people ask me what changed my life, they often expect me to give them a business secret, a special strategy, or maybe the name of the right stock to buy. But the truth is far simpler, and at the same time, far more powerful. The major shift in my life didn't come from mechanics. It came from philosophy. Success, in my experience, is 80% mindset and only 20% mechanics. And that's because the way you think shapes the way you act, and the way you act shapes your results. If you think like the broke, you'll stay broke. That's not an insult. It's simply reality. If your philosophy is, I'll never have enough, then even if you get a raise, you'll find yourself still struggling. If your philosophy is money is evil, then every time you start to gain some, you'll unconsciously push it away. I've met people who earned a fortune and lost it just as quickly, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they carried a poor philosophy about money. They believed wealth was temporary, or undeserved, or out of their control, and life confirmed what they believed. Now, compare that to those who think differently. The wealthy start with a philosophy of stewardship, growth, and responsibility. They see money not as something to chase or hoard, but as a resource to manage wisely, to grow deliberately, and to use responsibly. They know that wealth is not an accident. It's not a windfall. It's the predictable outcome of a sound philosophy consistently applied. One of the most practical things I ever did for myself was to start journaling my beliefs about money and success. I wrote down what I caught myself thinking. Things like, I'll never have enough, or it's too late for me, or people like me can't be wealthy. And when I saw those thoughts on paper, I could challenge them. I could ask myself, is this true? Or is this just something I picked up from people who were struggling too? Most of the time, it was the latter. So I began replacing those beliefs with new ones. I can create more than enough. It's never too late to start. If someone else can build wealth, so can I. And as my philosophy changed, so did my behavior. I saved more, invested more, learned more, and became more. The truth is, your life changes the moment your philosophy changes. When you stop thinking like the broke and start thinking like a steward, like a builder, like someone who takes responsibility, everything else follows. Income changes, habits change, opportunities change. It all flows from philosophy. Change your philosophy, and you will change your life. I learned long ago that one of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to look rich before they actually are. They spend every dollar they earn, and sometimes more, just to keep up appearances. Broke people stretch their paycheck. Wealthy people stretch their vision. If all you ever do is stretch the paycheck, you'll never get beyond survival. But if you start stretching your vision, you'll begin making decisions that position you for a future beyond your current circumstances. Living below your means isn't about deprivation, it's about direction. It's not about saying, I can't have anything. It's about saying, I'm choosing to build something. There's a big difference. Financial humility is the secret. That means you decide to spend less than you earn, you save before you splurge, and you keep your eyes on the future instead of just the weekend. Most people get paid on Friday, and by Monday they're broke again. Not because they didn't make enough, but because their vision didn't stretch beyond the next couple of days. I remember when my mentor first challenged me on this. He asked, why do you spend money like you're trying to prove something? Who are you trying to impress? That hit me hard. I realized I was spending to look successful rather than to become successful. The day I shifted from impressing others to investing in my future, everything began to change. I started saving, I started budgeting, and I learned to delay gratification. The simple decision to hold back today gave me choices tomorrow. Think about it. When you live below your means, you're buying freedom. Every dollar you don't spend is a seed you can plant, a safety net you can rely on, an opportunity you can seize when it shows up. And when you consistently do this, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled by your circumstances and start being guided by your vision. Instead of asking, what can I afford this weekend? You begin asking, What am I building for the next 5 years? That shift alone can completely transform your financial trajectory. I've watched ordinary people, teachers, small business owners, young professionals, who practiced financial humility and built extraordinary futures. They didn't win the lottery. They didn't inherit wealth. They just made the decision to live a little leaner today so they could live a lot freer tomorrow. Then I've also seen people with big incomes stay broke because their vision never reached past the next payday. So the question isn't how much you make, it's how far you can see. Spend less than you earn, save before you splurge, and let your vision guide your decisions. When you live below your means, but think far beyond your circumstances, you put yourself on the path from just surviving to truly thriving. One of the greatest shifts in my life happened when I discovered that wealth isn't built only by what you do with your money. It's built by what you do with your mind. Personal development is the ultimate investment. The wealthy outlearn and outthink before they ever outearn. And the good news is, anyone can start this process, no matter where they are or how much they make. You don't need permission, you don't need a degree, and you don't need to wait until you have extra money in your pocket. You simply need the decision to learn every day. I remember a time in my early years when my car became my university. Instead of just driving around listening to the radio, I started filling those miles with ideas. I listened to tapes. I soaked in lectures. I studied people who had gone further than I had. And let me tell you, those lessons on the road became turning points in my journey. A car can either be a place of wasted hours, or it can be a rolling classroom. The choice is yours. Think of it like compounding. We talk about compound interest with money, how small amounts grow into large sums over time. Well, knowledge works the same way. Read 10 pages a day, and in a year you've absorbed over 3,600 pages of wisdom. Listen to a book while you drive, and within months you'll have a whole new vocabulary, a whole new way of thinking. Attend a seminar, and in one afternoon you might catch an idea that saves you 10 years of mistakes. These small, consistent inputs create a compounding effect that transforms the way you see opportunities and challenges. The truth is, your income will rarely exceed your level of personal growth. That's why some people can be given $1 million and lose it in a year, because their skills, mindset, and philosophy never grew to match the size of their bank account. But when you outlearn, you eventually out-earn, because the marketplace always rewards value, and value comes from wisdom applied. I've seen people who started with very little completely change the trajectory of their lives simply because they became hungry learners. They treated books like mentors, tapes like teachers, and every opportunity to learn as an investment that no one could ever take away. So here's the challenge. Don't let a day go by without investing in your own mind. Read a few pages, listen while you drive, take notes at a seminar. Every new idea is a seed, and when you keep planting seeds, the harvest is inevitable. Turn your car into a classroom, your evenings into study halls, and your life into a continual education. Because the day you stop learning is the day you stop earning, and the day you start learning daily is the day your future begins to expand without limit. When I first started out, I thought wages were the whole game. If I could just get a steady paycheck, I'd be set. But I quickly learned that wages, as important as they are, will only ever make you a living. And let's be honest, for most people, wages just barely cover the living. Profits, on the other hand, have the power to make you rich. Wages tie you to hours, but profits continue to work whether you're present or not. That's the secret the wealthy understand. They don't stop at earning, they start building. Now, let me explain why this is so powerful. When you're working for wages, Your time is your only resource. You give an hour, you get paid for an hour. But what happens if you get sick? What happens if your industry changes? Or your company downsizes? Suddenly, the one source of income you've been depending on disappears. That's a shaky foundation to build a life on. Profits, though, are different. Profits come from ownership, from investments, from side hustles, from creating something once that can pay you again and again. With profits, you're no longer trading time for money. You're putting money, systems, or products to work on your behalf. I learned this lesson the hard way. Early on, I depended entirely on my wages. And while I was working hard, I was also living check to check. It wasn't until a mentor told me, "You've got to find a way to let your money work for you," that I woke up. I started small. I sold products on weekends. I invested a little bit at a time. I looked for ways to turn hobbies into income streams. And let me tell you, the first time I earned a profit without trading a direct hour of labor, it completely shifted my mindset. Suddenly, I understood that freedom comes not from more hours worked, but from creating systems of profit that multiply without you. The beautiful part is, you don't have to start big. Start with something small. A weekend service, an online product, a skill you can package, or a little investment in a dividend stock or real estate. It's not about size, it's about momentum. Because once you taste profit, you'll never think the same about wages again. So here's the truth. Wages will feed you today, but profits will free you tomorrow. Don't just work for a paycheck. Work to build something, an asset, a business, a portfolio that keeps paying you long after you've stopped working. That's the bridge from making a living to creating wealth. When I look back at the turning points in my life, they all came down to one thing: discipline. Not the big dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind. The small, daily choices that don't look like much in the moment but add up to everything over time. Wealth is not built in one giant leap. It's built brick by brick, habit by habit. Excuses, on the other hand, are just as powerful, but they build something very different. They build poverty, regret, and missed opportunities. The truth is, every day you're either piling up disciplines or piling up excuses, and one day you'll live inside the house you've built. I've heard people say, "I'll start saving when I make more money," or "I'll read and learn when I have more time." But here's the reality. If you don't start the disciplines with what you have now, you won't suddenly adopt them later. If you can't save $10 out of $100, you won't save $100 out of $1,000. If you can't make time to read 10 pages today, you won't suddenly read an entire book tomorrow. Discipline is a muscle. You strengthen it with use, not with excuses. When I began to change my own financial life, it wasn't through giant leaps of income. It was through little adjustments I practiced daily. I started by saving a small percentage of every dollar. At first, it didn't look like much, but what mattered was the habit. Then I committed myself to reading 10 pages a day, just 10, over weeks and months that turned into dozens of books, and each one sharpened my thinking and improved my philosophy, and I made small sacrifices. Skipping an unnecessary purchase might not feel like much, but when you redirect that money into savings or investments, you're planting seeds for a future harvest. Excuses will always sound reasonable in the moment. I deserve this, or it's just a little thing, or I'll start tomorrow. But excuses have a sneaky way of stealing your future while comforting you in the present. Disciplines, on the other hand, demand a little discomfort now, but reward you endlessly later. That's the trade-off. A little pain today, or a lot of regret tomorrow. So, here's the challenge. Write down 3 simple wealth habits you can practice daily. Maybe it's saving $10, reading for 30 minutes, or passing on that purchase you don't really need. Protect those habits like treasure, because that's exactly what they'll become. Small disciplines, guarded fiercely, will create a life of abundance. Excuses will only leave you empty-handed. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and wealth. Cross it every day. One of the greatest discoveries I ever made was that success doesn't have to be reinvented. You don't have to guess your way to prosperity, and you don't have to stumble blindly in the dark. The path has already been walked. The clues have already been left, and the models are already there. The difference between those who remain broke and those who rise to wealth often comes down to one simple choice. Do you try to figure it all out yourself, or do you humble yourself enough to study the people who have already done it? When I was younger, I made the mistake of thinking I knew enough. I figured I could wing it, work hard, and somehow it would all come together. But effort without direction is exhausting. Then I met a man who had achieved the kind of success I wanted. I studied his habits, I listened to his advice, and slowly I began to notice the gaps in my own thinking. He didn't just give me answers, he gave me perspective. And perspective is priceless, because it allows you to see not just where you are, but where you need to go. That's the power of a mentor. They shorten the learning curve. They help you avoid mistakes that could cost you years, even decades. They don't make the journey effortless. No one can do the work for you, but they make it clear. And clarity is worth more than gold. When you don't know what to do, you lose time, you lose money, and you lose momentum. But when you model someone who has already succeeded, you borrow their wisdom and their strategies. And suddenly the path is not only visible, but achievable. I've always said that success leaves clues, and it really does. You'll find them in books, in biographies, in seminars, in conversations with people who have walked the path. You'll find them in the stories of how they saved, invested, took risks, and learned from failures. The wealthy aren't smarter or luckier. They're often just students of principles that never change. So the question is, are you studying success, or are you guessing your way through? Broke people guess. Wealthy people copy proven models. If you don't have a personal mentor in your life yet, let books be your mentors. Let successful people you've never met teach you through their words and experiences. The beautiful thing is, you don't need to be in the same room with someone to learn from them. You just need to be willing to listen, study, and apply. Find someone further along financially. Study their habits. Ask questions. Read what they read. Follow their examples. You don't need to start from scratch. You only need to start paying attention. Success leaves clues, but only for those who are willing to look. It's amazing how many people spend the majority of their time on things that don't move their life forward. Hours lost in front of a screen, gossiping about people who can't change their circumstances, or endlessly scrolling for entertainment. And yet, when you ask those same people why they aren't further ahead, they'll tell you they don't have enough time. The truth is, it's not that they don't have enough time, it's that they're majoring in minor things. They're spending their days on distractions when they could be using those same hours to create something that changes their future. I learned early on that the wealthy don't have more hours in a day than anyone else. We all get 24. The difference is in what we do with them. The wealthy treat time like currency, because it's the only resource you can never get back once it's spent. You can lose money and make it back. You can lose opportunities and find new ones. But once a day is gone, it's gone forever. And if you trade your days for things that don't matter, you'll wake up one day realizing you built a life full of empty hours. I can remember times when I used to waste evenings watching television or engaging in idle talk, thinking it was harmless. But then I started asking myself, what if I took just one of those hours and invested it differently? What if I used it to read, to study, to plan, to create? That one change began to compound. 1 hour became a new habit. That habit became a new skill. That skill created new opportunities. And before long I realized I had been sitting on a gold mine of unused time, just waiting to be put to work. Broke people stretch their paycheck, wealthy people stretch their vision, and vision requires focus. You can't see where you're going if you're distracted by every shiny thing along the way. That's why it's so important to audit your time. Ask yourself, how much of my day is going to entertainment, and how much is going to education? How much is going to gossip, and how much is going to growth? How much is spent consuming, and how much is spent creating? The truth is, most people don't need more opportunities. They just need to stop wasting the ones they already have. If you took the hours you spend on minor things and redirected them into learning, building, saving, investing, and creating, you'd be astonished at what you could accomplish in just a few years. The difference between poverty and prosperity often comes down to how you invest your hours. Don't major in minor things. If you want a major life, you've got to put your time into what matters most. Most people think wealth begins with a pile of money, but that's not true. Wealth begins with leverage, and leverage is not just capital. Leverage is when your effort extends beyond your own two hands. It's when your skill, your systems, and your relationships multiply your impact far beyond what you could do alone. If you wait for capital before you begin, you'll probably never start. But if you learn to build leverage first, the capital will eventually come and flow to you naturally. I remember a time when I had very little to work with. Certainly not the kind of money people imagine you need to get started. But what I did have was a hunger to learn. I discovered that if I built skills, communication, sales, leadership, those skills would open doors that money couldn't. Skills are a form of leverage. Once you know how to sell, you can move products. Once you know how to speak, you can move people. Once you know how to lead, you can move organizations. And those abilities are worth far more than a starting pile of money.